Well, good morning, everybody. While Stuart's trying to connect, I just figure I'll start the introduction. I'm Linda Barron, President of the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today. We have a new program here at the Chamber. It's the MEAP program, which stands for Multiple Employer Aggregation Program. And it is something new that we're offering to our members. For the first time at the end of 2019, the federal government allowed association plans to offer retirement plans, 401ks, to our members, through the association. So this is something that we spent some time looking into. It is something that Enrico Bauer brought to the table here at the Chamber from Lincoln Financial. It is a product of Lincoln Financial. Member brokers can participate in the program as well and sell the product as to your clients or new clients. But today we're really just going to have an overview of the program to give you an idea. It's a really nice recruitment and retention tool for small businesses who are always competing with larger businesses to retain employees. So we thought that it was something that was an interesting product to bring to the table for our members. So we hope that today we'll provide you information on the program, and that if you want to offer to your employees, you'll have the ability to do so. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Stuart Rockman. Stuart is from Lincoln Financial. And Stuart, you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself and start us off. Thank you.
Stuart, you're on mute.
Stuart.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Perfect. Dom, I apologize. You have to make me a presenter again. When I logged out and logged back in, I came out of it. So if you don't mind, that would be appreciated. And good morning, Staten Island. And the sun rose today, and this isn't a political commentary, but boy, it's been a stressful few hours for a lot of people. And I wonder if anybody else woke up in the middle of the night like my wife did at 2:30, 3 o'clock, seeing if there were any results. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I need to watch this." So my sleep was broken, so hopefully your guys wasn't. But Dom, were you able to let me be part of the screen at this point?
Yep, you're good to go.
Perfect. All right, good morning. So my name is Stuart Rauschman from Lincoln Financial. It's a privilege to share information with you today. The purpose of today is really to talk about an exciting new program that Linda and the Chamber are able to offer to their members. This all came about, believe it or not, about a year ago because of the Secure Act, which was passed by both Congress and Senate, and which isn't that easy to do in these day and age. And it was really to make 401k plans more accessible to small businesses. And an organization previously couldn't have a 401k through a program like Staten Island's able to offer now. Staten Island Chamber, which is, unbelievable at how they try and be more helpful to their members, they thought this would be a good solution. And that's the genesis of this. I'm going to introduce my colleagues Enrico Bauer and Jason Fitz. They're significant senior advisors with many, many years of experience. Gentlemen, would you like to say good morning before I begin the program and talk about how, hopefully we can be helpful to this group?
Sure, Enrico.
Hi, good morning. We are a proud member of the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce, and we're very happy to be able to offer this opportunity through the Chamber. And, hopefully the plan, it's all about the plan. And I hope you guys will see that. Stuart will present that more. So more to come.
Perfect. All right. So with that, go ahead, Jason. Anything you'd like to add before I begin?
Just wanted to echo that. We're excited to work with the Chamber, but this is really about the plan and how it helps the Chamber and how it helps its members. And so Stuart, please proceed, and we'll look forward to reaching out to each and every one of you after. Thank you. Perfect.
So for the folks on the call, I have such respect for what you do on a day-to-day basis, and we've obviously been in a very challenging environment. I was a business owner for most of my life. For 22 years, I was the largest distributor of bagels in the state of New Jersey. I had a 401k plan. I had about 100 employees, and I just assumed that my 401k plan was in a favorable position. But every single day, all I wanted to do was run my business as effectively as possible, just like you folks are doing. And it's not easy, and it wasn't easy before the pandemic, and it's been more challenging now. The one thing that I'll share with you, and I sold the business business about 14 years ago. My wife wouldn't let me retire, and I have a passion for finance. But the one thing I'll share with you that we find is that most 401k plans, including the one that I had, are really not in an ideal position. We think that they are. We may think they're okay. But the goal today is, and this is what Staten Island is offering, is the ability to really look at an enhanced program, taking advantage of the buying power as the accumulation of what Staten Island has to do to really have a much better program. Now, we call the program a MEAP. Now, there's always acronyms out there. MEAP actually stands for Multiple Employer Aggregator Program. And the reality is that Staten Island is able to offer this to all of their members as an advanced service to their members. So again, we start with the thought process that most plans aren't in a favorable position, even though sometimes business owners think they are. And that's the goal. And now, if your plan is in a great position, then by all means, you can certainly maintain it. You can keep it where it is now. But the goal really was, and our experience has been, that most plans tend to not be in a really good position for a number of areas. The first is there's a lot of work, which we'll talk about. The second is there's a huge amount of liability when you have a 401k plan, which we'll talk about. And then lastly, and obviously significantly important to most people, cost and performance. So those are the areas that we're actually going to be looking at today. If anybody has any questions, by the way, you can certainly reach out through Dom, and we'll take them all at the end because we want to make this as interactive as possible. So for you folks that have 401k plans currently, if you look at this sheet, this is kind of what you're dealing with on an ongoing basis over the course of the year. So in my case, think about, I wanted to produce thousands and thousands of dozens of bagels, and then I had to deal with this. And I'm offering this wonderful program, and yet I had a huge amount of responsibility. Our goal by offering this program through the chamber is to take that list of responsibilities and really make it very easy, very streamlined. So we want to take as much off your plate as we possibly can. That's the first reason that someone would want to consider the MEAP. The fact that you have a ton of responsibility, you don't really want to do it, you want to be more efficient so that you could focus your energies on your business and growing your business, and that's the goal. So we want to take you from here down to here. So that's a pretty important point that we wanted to share with you. The second thing that's really important to know is that when you have a 401k plan, and some of you may actually know this, I didn't, even though I owned my business and had a plan, is how much liability there is when you have a 401k plan. And this is a really big deal. This happens to be a quote from Phyllis Borsey. She was the Department of Labor, Secretary of the Department of Labor, which was a huge position under President Obama. And what she's telling you is that you're personally liable for the plan. So if you asked me who was responsible for my 401k plan, I would have pointed at my financial advisor. I would have pointed at my record keeper. I never would have looked in the mirror and thought it was me. But the reality is that last year there was over $2.5 billion in fines by the Department of Labor. The year before was $1.9 billion. The year before was $1.6 billion. And the fines, although they're very upsetting, they're not actually on the business. It's actually on the business owner. Again, I didn't know all of this when I was in your position. So the goal, and one of the things that was really appealing to Linda in the chamber, is the fact that not only would we be able to reduce your workload, but we're going to be able to take all of that liability away from you. So that's the second thing that's really important to note about having a 401k plan, and why that a MEAP, Multiple Employer Aggregator Program, would be something that would be viable. Dom, before I continue, are there any questions? Because I think that's an important point to pause, and we've given a lot of information so far. But if there's anything that people would like me to address now, and we can always do it later, I'd certainly be glad to if you want to unmute and let me know if there's any questions at this point.
I don't see any questions. There is a chat. If anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat.
Perfect. So what I thought would be next, most helpful next, is kind of tell you how the whole program works and why it would be beneficial. So obviously the most important one is the person at the top, and you'll see Staten Island Chamber of Commerce. They're what's called the endorsing organization. We're able to take advantage and offer this to all of their members. You, as the business owner, are in the middle, and that's your 401k plan. Now, we can help clients that are members that have 401k plans, or if there's members that want to begin a 401k plan and didn't know what to do next or as a next possible step, we can also help you with that. So that's another thing that's really important to note. Lincoln Financial, which is the organization that I work with, we're a Fortune 250 organization. We're located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're what's called the record keeper. We use a third-party administrator. The acronym for that is TPA, called NBS. They're taking over the administrative fiduciary. Remember, we talked about getting that liability away. Some of you may have heard of Morningstar. They're the best known fund company, rating of fund companies. They take over the financial liability on the funds. So between those two organizations, we're removing all of that liability. So if there was a litigious event and one of your employees wanted to sue you for a number of things, and by the way, lawsuits happen all the time. Fidelity was sued by their own employees. NYU was sued by their own employees. So the fact that it happens is not unusual. And then the advisors would be Enrico Bawar from Staten Island and Jason Fitz are there. So that's the structure of how the plan is working. But the goal is to take advantage of all of the buying power of Staten Island and all the groups that are there to offer you folks a really enhanced program. And remember, most plans that we look at are not in an ideal position, even though they think they are. A little bit about Lincoln Financial. We are a Fortune 250 organization. We celebrated our 116th anniversary this year, actually last month, and we are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. There's a team of resources that are developed and there for you. I've been at Lincoln for 8 years. It's an unbelievable organization, and we feel like we can really help our groups like yourselves really be more successful. Technology, state of the art. So we include all of that and all of the training. This was important to Linda and the senior management at the Chamber, is the fact that Lincoln has no funds of their own. What that means is that we can be completely independent, and the advisor team of Jason and Enrico pick best-in-class funds. None of them are Lincoln, so there's nothing proprietary, which would be potentially a liability, so that they have the ability to offer that to you. And we only use what's called institutional share class funds, which are the least expensive. So oftentimes when we look at someone's plan, they are in what's called a retail share class. Quick, interesting comment. Think about the difference between retail and institutional. My wife yesterday went to Sam's. I almost threw up when I saw how much she spent. And she's like, but look at all this stuff. Now, I don't probably need 3 gallons of ketchup, but I guess 3 gallons of ketchup was the same price as 1 gallon of ketchup. Literally, she has these 3 giant jugs. Well, that's what you're getting with the efficiencies of the scale of being able to use institutional mutual funds as opposed to retail, which is what we often see. Any questions, Dom, yet? Anything on through the chat box? Because I can't see that. And again, I don't want to go too much into it if there's a question. I don't want to go too far ahead.
Nothing yet.
Okay. How we've been able to price this with Staten Island and how we were able to offer this is each plan is able to take advantage of the overall size of Staten Island Chamber of Commerce, but each plan is priced in a separate fashion. So in other words, a $1 million plan with 10 people would be priced differently than a $5 million plan with 20 people, and a startup plan would be priced differently. But the one thing to know that's really important is as each plan grows, they are repriced on an annual basis, and they are all able to take advantage of the overall buying power of Staten Island. So usually when we see this, there are 3 reasons people would make a modification to their plan is 1, a lot less workload, which is huge. 2, a lot less liability, or we eliminate the liability. And then 3, there's obviously cost savings are important. I don't want to misrepresent and think that you're going to have cost savings of 50%, 70%. That's probably not reasonable unless you're, over getting killed right now. But you are probably looking at rates of about 15 or 20% less expensive on an ongoing basis. Now, the next question we usually get is, how do you know how much we're paying now, and how does something like that work? So what we do is we have these great resources and tools that we use to try and show the value to you. And I strongly encourage members of Staten Island to take advantage of this. Whether you actually decide to switch and make your plan part of Staten Island's plan is okay. You don't have to, or you can, but you should review this for 2 reasons. 1, by doing a review, let's assume you're in a really favorable position. Let's say your plan is one of the few that are really ideal. Well, then you have done your due diligence as a business owner. And if you're ever audited by the Department of Labor, you have a full report to say, hey, by the way, I did a full analysis. We actually looked at everything and we're in a good position, and you're covered. And that would reduce that risk for you. Or 2, if you look at the plan and you consider joining the Staten Island Chamber's plan, you'll find out that there's a lot of things that you can improve, and then you can make an informed business decision. And that's really our goal, is to offer you the ability to make great decisions. What you'll see on the screen is a quick summary review that we do for all of the plans that would be joining. And most people are most concerned with cost and performance. So you'll see that we put that last. What we really are also looking at, and this is just an example, is we're actually looking at these other areas. Fiduciary liability, we talked about it. the process, the investments, and then ultimately we need to get to the cost and performance. In this case, this group actually is saving about 40 or 50%, but that is not necessarily always the case. And again, our goal is to make sure that you're as effective as possible, again, using institutional and taking advantage of Staten Island's buying power, but 50% is not necessarily a reasonable one, although this is one that happened. One of the tools we use is an independent report. We call it a provider comparison report. Here's some examples. It's usually 20 pages long, but I just took a couple pages to highlight. But we'll actually show where you currently are and where you would be in the program with the MEAP. And then we also compare performance. So we reflect all of these numbers on this analysis. And that's the goal, is you're doing a full summary. You're looking at where you currently are with Staten Island, with your own 401k program, and where you would be if you were able to join the Staten Island MEAP. So that's really what we try and do for our clients. But again, the three reasons you would be looking at considering this is significantly reduced workload. You get rid of your fiduciary liability, which, as I said, last year was $2.5 billion in fines, and it's actually you personally liable as a business owner. And then 3, efficiencies and cost savings. So again, I'm going to pause before we continue, but that's a good point. There's usually some questions that are involved. Is there anything on the chat box, Dom or Linda, that you'd like me to address?
Nothing yet.
Okay, I got the whole audience silence.
Just a reminder to everyone, you can submit your questions via the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen, or you can always just type into the chat.
Stuart, one thing
Perfect.
that may be good to point out on that, the prior slide is the service factor. I see there's a lot of one-on-one service, account management, different resources. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, that goes back, and it's a great point, Jason, so thanks. But it goes back to how we can take things off your plate. And I'll kind of go back just a drop to one of our earlier ones. But most plans are on automatic pilot. They are not getting exactly what Jason said, which is that personal attention, not just from Lincoln Financial, but from the advisory team. And that's exactly what Jason's referring to, is the fact that we're actually able to help educate your participants. We're actually able to meet with them one-on-one, give them suggestions, advice. And again, the reason there's question marks on this particular one is they didn't have anything, but I didn't want to be disingenuous and write no. So we just put question marks. But as we were having talks with the business owners, but this is all there for you folks. It's the goal of Staten Island Chamber was to give you an opportunity to have an enhanced program to lower your cost and get rid of your liability. And that's really where we've been successful with other communities as well. Linda, I know that this was important to you, and I know you've done a tremendous amount of diligence with the team. Is there anything you'd like me to add to that? Because I know that this was an important component of it.
I just think that, one of the reasons that we did this too was that, again, a lot of small employers don't necessarily have 401k plans. And as you mentioned, kind of the oversight that needs to happen and the liability that comes along with having a plan like this. So, if we could save some, money in offering this plan to our members and also allowing them to get rid of that liability, we thought that that was important. This is a plan that can only be purchased through, you have to be a Staten Island Chamber of Commerce member to do it. I would say, Stuart, maybe you could talk a little bit about the process of, if somebody's interested in this plan, what would they do? I mean, we've talked internally, and Rico and Jason are available, but we also have, member brokers who are also interested in selling the product as well. So if somebody has a member broker, can they go through them? Maybe you can explain that as well. And if not, should they be contacting us? Should they be contacting your team? Just kind of give it a flow of the process.
Great. So thank you. That was a natural segue. So thank you, Linda. Whether you realized it or not, you should be a natural host. So the idea is the next steps to get started. It really is making just either an email or a contact to, either Staten Island or to Jason and Enrico. And I believe that they'll distribute this book or this deck to you, so you'll have access to all of our numbers. And I strongly encourage you to allow us to review, have a conversation, understand your needs, because every business that we talk to is going to have a little bit different needs. But the ultimate goal is for us to do a full analysis on your plan so that we get to this point where we show you where you would be if you were in the Staten Island plan and where you are now. It's a side by side, so it's very simple. And this does two different things for you. One, again, if your plan right now, if you have an existing plan and it's in a really good position, we're going to tell you, hey, by the way, your plan's in a really good position. You've done your fiduciary diligence and you're covered. You put that in your folder. What we often see is people are then saying, oh my God, I had no idea. Gosh, I had no idea my plan needed so many things. And now that you bring it to my attention, I realize we have a lot of things to improve. And then we'll talk about next steps, plan design, how we can help you create it. In today's with technology, to do a transition from one record keeper into this plan is very simple. It's all done behind the scenes, so it won't be intrusive upon your staff or yourself. But that's the goal. It really is as simple as allowing us to have a conversation with you to understand what your goals are, what your needs are, and what you currently have. And I can tell you again, as a business owner, I thought I was in a really good position, and thank goodness I wasn't sued, but I did not realize till afterwards that I said, oh my gosh, there were a lot of things I could have been doing a lot more efficiently and a lot better for my participants, my employees, and myself. So that's literally as simple as it is. It's just a call or an email and allow us to try and be helpful to you. So Linda, sometimes I try and make things complicated, my kids tell me, but this one's pretty simple actually. Other questions, other comments? Anybody?
It looks like
Can I hear anybody?
There's a question.
Go ahead.
There's a question in the Q&A. Do you see that?
Yes.
I
here it
don't,
is.
so if you want to read it,
Please,
Jason,
I'll
that would be fine.
I'll read it to you. And this is it's anonymous. It says, under the Secure Act of 2019, you as an employer or plan administrator is required to have employees opt into the 401k plan when eligible. So they are required to opt out now when eligible. And this plan will help you as plan administrator not to worry about that.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm going to read it one more time.
Sure. So let me see. Are you able to see the chat? I can maybe it's easier.
Yeah, I opened up the chat and I'm not sure. Under the Secure Act of 2019.
I think they're asking if this is it a requirement to have employees automatic enrollment essentially, and does this help
automatic enrollment is it was suggested on Secure Act. It is not mandatory for someone to offer automatic enrollment in today's day and age.
Do they have the ability to offer that through this?
You absolutely can offer, and you have individual plan design. So one plan A, company A can offer one plan design. Plan B, so there's a lot of flexibility, can offer a completely different one. With respect to plan design, each of the organizations that are to partake in this have their own separate plan design. They're also going to file their own 5500, which will be generated signature ready by the third-party administrator that we use, but all the plan designs are the exact same. The consistency about this and where we're able to get efficiencies of scale is everybody uses the exact same mutual fund lineup, all that institutional share classes that have been picked out for the Chamber of Commerce. And that's where we're able to offer the fiduciary protection and the monitoring. So I hope that answered your question. If a person wanted to have automatic enrollment, they can. It's not mandatory, and each plan can be completely designed separately to meet their strategic goals. Other questions that may be helpful to the group? Can you see why Staten Island was excited to share this with you? We've had tremendous success in our limited time in sharing this with some of the members that have gone a little bit further already that may not be on this WebEx. But, it really does work, folks. It lowers your cost. It will make your workload a lot less, and it'll get rid of your fiduciary liability, and you'll be able to offload that as well. So those are really the driving points of why, the Chamber thought this would be hugely of value to their members. Stuart, other questions? Yes.
Do you mind talking a little bit more in detail about the Morningstar fiduciary liability protection?
Sure. So there's the two high, and to Jason's point, the two highest layers of fiduciary protection are called 321 and 338. It has to do with who's monitoring the funds on an ongoing basis, and then what the interaction is between them. So in the universe, and I'm not going to try and make this too complicated, there's about 10,000 funds in the mutual fund universe. Morningstar, which is the best known name, a lot of you hopefully have heard of it and may even reference it yourselves. They take the 10,000 funds, they bring it down to about 400 of the best that they're monitoring. Of those 400, they take each category, and there's a bunch of different categories for investments. There's usually about 18 to 20 that people choose. They pick the best 10, and then they monitor those 10 and they offer them to the Staten Island Chamber. You, as the financial advisor, Jason and Enrico, picked the best of the 10 in each category. And again, they're constantly being monitored on a quarterly basis. But by doing so and going through all of this rigorous process, if somebody had a litigious event from a fiduciary perspective and they didn't like what the investments were that were offered, or they didn't like the returns, they instead, if they did choose to be litigious, and they could certainly sue, the individual business owner as they currently are, we would actually take that liability away from them. So I know that probably was more detailed than some of you folks may have wanted to hear, but the point is, the top people in the world, Morningstar, the top company, gives you the 2 highest layers of fiduciary protection. And when we look at most plans, they do not currently have that. Some do, but very, very rarely. So that's the goal. And the other problem is most business owners don't realize that they have this liability, and they actually do. They think that someone else has it, and it's actually them personally.
Perfect.
Other questions, folks?
Hey, Stuart, I have a question. So at the chamber, we
Please.
have a 401k plan, and we actually contribute, and then the employees can match it. Can you explain how that works with a product like this? Is it the same?
Right. So what we would do, so to that, Linda, is that's individual plan design for what you currently have. And you obviously have gone to great lengths to look at your plan design. What we would do is, if that plan design, which what you're describing with the match and all of the things you just talked about, are ideal, then we would suggest that that's fine, but we would certainly see if there's efficiencies to be gained. But we're not going to tell you to change that, but you have that flexibility, Linda. And yet another business in Staten Island may have completely different ideas, may not offer a match, and may not want to offer a match, so they wouldn't have to. So you have that individual ability to have plan design, and it's specific to each organization, and we'll help you review and make sure that it's still the ideal one that you wanted to achieve. What we often see, Linda, interestingly enough, is, I don't know how old your plan is, and we should have a conversation offline on that, but oftentimes people have, and I know you've been at the chamber for quite a while, but people haven't really looked at it. It's on automatic pilot. So what you originally designed a number of years ago, and I know you've been there for a long time, may be different and may not be in alignment with what you want to be achieving as a chamber now. So those are good dialogues, and this is a good check or time to check and make sure of that. So you do have that flexibility.
So if an employer, though, doesn't want to contribute, but they want to make this available to their employees to contribute, they can do that. And I guess, is there any criteria as to how many employees have to participate?
So you have to have at least 5 participants to at least be eligible for this program, for a 401k program. So if there's anybody on the call that has 1 or 2 people, this would not be the solution, because that's not the solution. But if you have 5 people that work at XYZ company, you certainly could offer that. And as Linda just shared, you would have discretion over whether you wanted to have an employer contribution or match or not. We could talk about the pros and the cons and the value to it, but you have plenty of flexibility with respect to what you would like to offer and what you'd like to achieve. So,
got another question.
Other questions, folks?
Yeah. So
please.
Another question from anonymous attendee. It says, since we have to send in our own form 5500, depending on the amount in our business's portion of the plan, are we also required to have a CPA's audit report attached if required? Does the MEAP relieve us from this requirement?
So the question actually, let me back up a little bit. And the person that's asking this question sounds knowledgeable because he's asking specific questions. And it's my pleasure to answer them. Each group, each organization that takes part in this has their own 5500. So we're grouping the plans together as a pricing mechanism, but we're not filing the tax return, which is what the 5500 is, as a group. Each one has their own. And the only person that would have to file the audit report is if you hit the requirements for an audit report, which is over 100 participants, 120, based on when it starts of the calendar year. So if a plan doesn't have that, and by the way, we have a list of all the businesses in Staten Island, and there aren't that many, and I have a lot of Staten Island clients that are over that 120, but if you're a business that has 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 70 people, there is no requirement to file an audit. There is no fee for it because it's not necessary. So that's not part of the program because you're not joining everybody else. You're filing your own 5500, which we prepare for you. So hopefully that answered that question. Any other questions, folks?
We got another question in chat. Just want to clarify, we would have to offer to 5 people, or would 5 people have to sign up?
Now, you have to offer it to 5 as a minimum, but there has to be at least 3 that decide to join, to be honest with you. And if not, it's really out of respect to you. There's other solutions that would possibly fit, like a simple or things like that. So this program is a group program, and that's just what the regulations are that we utilize is 5. So, other questions? I see something with Q&A. Can employees take loans from this plan? So this has the same exact provisions as a 401k plan, because it actually is a 401k plan. So yes, an employee, a participant, if as long as there's money in their account, would follow the IRS guidelines of what could be taken out. So it's 50% up to $100,000 because of the CARES Act. It used to be 50% up to $50,000. So yes, that's absolutely available. The same provisions that you'd have currently with your plan, if you have a plan, would be the same provisions that would be here. Other questions?
Stuart?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Linda.
No, I was just going to ask if you could speak to what the administrative fees look like.
Yep. So the TPA fees are administrative fees. And for any of you folks, let's talk about the group, how a 401k plan is. There's all 401k plans, not just this one. They have 3, let's call it pillars or 3-legged stool. The first leg, and Chamber is able to offer this. The first leg is the financial advisors, and we're talking to Enrico and Jason today. If you in fact have a plan with an existing advisor, the Chamber's allowing you to use that same advisor to bring them in. You don't have to use Enrico or Jason, although I have 8 years of experience with them, and you're not going to find a more professional and successful, hardworking team, but you certainly have that flexibility to keep your own current advisor. So that's the first leg of the stool. The second leg of the stool is called the record keeper. That's what Lincoln Financial, that's our role. We handle the fiduciary responsibilities, the educational support, the website. That's what Lincoln does. And the third leg is what's called the third-party administrator, the TPA. The TPA handles all the compliance to make sure that you're fully protected, that the plan documents are there, that you pass testing. That's the role of the TPA. We use a national TPA called NBS. They're able to do payroll uploads. They offer full fiduciary services. So that's the third leg. To answer Linda's question, if you have a 401k plan now, you have a TPA, and they're often quite expensive. The fees on this using the TPA for here is actually $750 a year, and it's all embedded in. So we actually include it in the pricing, but it's $750 a year and then $25 per person. So if you have a 10-person company, as an example, that 10 participants, the fee for the administration is actually $1,000. It's the $750 plus 10 times 25. And I can assure you that because of efficiencies of scale, that if you have a 401k now, that's probably half or a third of what you're currently paying, even if you actually have that. I'm just going to show you an example of what a proposal looks like in a second, so you can kind of see, but that's all kind of figured out. So you'll actually see here on this proposal page, it's all embedded in there, but we actually break it out for you so you can actually see what it looks like. Linda, did that answer the question on administrative costs? Because there's usually significant savings there.
Right. Stuart, if
Other
you don't
questions,
mind,
folks?
Stuart, if you don't mind, you know, one thing is cost, but the other part that we're interested in, what we're in, is service. So let's talk about how simple, or how can, as a business owner who really doesn't know much about what needs to be done, how we can hold their hand and get things done in a efficient manner.
Yep. So we actually, and thank you, because it's a good way to kind of segue, but we actually did talk about service first, although we covered so much information. So guys, ladies, guys, business owners, if you have a 401k plan now, what you're looking at on the screen is your responsibilities, and we'll send this out in the deck to you, but you're responsible for every single one of these. Now, some of these you may have already offloaded to a third-party administrator, but our goal is to take all of this and make it into this. So once you sign the agreement, we're actually going to do all of that, with the exception of doing the census, which you have control of because it's your employees, and then allowing us to submit the payroll on your behalf. Everything from here goes to here. And that's the beautiful thing about this. We're taking as much off your plate. And if you're not doing all of this on a regular basis, then you probably have some additional liability that, again, you may not even have realized you have. So our goal is to take it from this high layer of responsibility to make it as simple as possible. And that's what these MEAPs have been very successful at doing for businesses. Because we want you, and the chamber wants you, to focus your energies on being successful in managing your business and continuing to grow your businesses, not dealing with the administrative tasks, which most people have no interest in doing or desire to do or didn't know they had to do. So again, 3 reasons you'd want to do this is you get rid of your workload, you get rid of your liability, and then ideally we're going to drop your cost and be able to lower your cost. Like I said, typically we see 15 to 20% savings cumulatively, and we're able to document that by doing these reviews and analysis so that we can actually show that to you in a very clear and concise way.
And
Other
Stuart, if
questions, because I
may,
want to be
I'd like
respectful of
to-
people's time. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I may, aside from the 3 pillars that you had mentioned, Jason and I are here. We've experienced, I mean, I've been in the industry for 30 years. And what we'd like to do is to let you understand that you can leverage our expertise in this. So when you decide to do this, we will be there to help you as well. So that's another layer that that you need to understand, and you're not going to be alone through this process. This is not this is customizable, and this is something where we could be part of that answer. And certainly Jason and I, we've had experience not only in this part of the equation of the business, but we know most of you in your businesses, we could help and find you the resource that you need for other things as well. Thank you.
That's exactly right. Linda, anything else that you want to add? Or because I know, again, you've been gracious enough to allow us to share information with your members, but I know this is really personal. I know you oversee and everything you do is for the benefit of your community. So anything you'd like us to end or ask before we finish up?
Looks like Linda's having some issues connecting, but she is.
Okay, Dom.
Back. Looks like
I'm back.
There she is. There she is.
Sorry.
Modern technology, Linda.
Modern
Linda, I just said,
technology.
I know you take it so personal and you're so committed to the businesses of Staten Island. Is there anything further that you'd like us, because I want to be respectful of the time. I'm passionate about this, but I know, you've been gracious. Anything you'd like us to add to close it out?
I mean, I really don't think so. I tried to think of some of the questions that people might have. I'm sure if anybody has any questions, they could reach out to us and we can, put you in contact with the appropriate person to answer any of your questions. I know it's, there's a lot to think about here, but I just want to make sure that people realize that this is something that is a new type of product and an opportunity to use as a retention tool for your employees if you're in that position to do that. So I think I'd just like to thank you, Stuart and Enrico and Jason for joining us today to providing more information and hopefully members, you'll be hearing more about this product too, and we'll make sure that you have enough information to make an informed decision if you decide to move forward with something like this.
Thank you so much, folks. Be safe and have a great day, and thank you so much, guys.
You too.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you, Linda. Okay.